Hello, and welcome to the first Power Hour after the summer break for us in the Northern Hemisphere. Doesn't matter how many times I do this over the past 5 to 10 years, I still get butterflies when that countdown happens. I don't think that will ever change. I guess that's what makes us human. I'm Matt Manners, founder and CEO of Inspiring Workplaces Group, and a quick thank you to our partner for this event, H&H. We have a lot coming your way in the coming months. We have our 24-hour event that you just saw at the beginning of the event there, called the People First Summit. It used to be called the Inspirathon. It has 50 plus speakers from all over the world providing unrivaled insight and inspiration. We've got our Inspiring Leaders Awards, with the deadline looming large on the horizon for that one, I think October 10th. Our podcast will finally return, the Inspire Club. We have some amazing guests for you on that one, and that will probably then run for the next 12 months every week for you. We've just launched our reformatted weekly Inspire Work newsletter. We hope you like it, and it gives you more articles, videos, learning materials in a more concise manner, just to try and help you on your daily and week-to-week strategy planning, just executing in an ever-evolving, rapidly evolving world of work. And we'll be bringing networking activities to our Inspire Hub to actually get you talking to one another a bit more around connection. More power hours and just so much more. Our awards are back for 2025 too. So please watch your space. But back to today and our power hour on inclusion and community. A wide-ranging topic, I'm sure you'll agree. And as such, we have a wide-ranging set of views and opinions for it. So I'll try to be brief, or I've probably already failed at that. So I come at today's session through the prism of connection and belonging, and connection as human beings, where we can really, truly create people-first cultures. It's something that I think we seem to be losing through the different challenges that have been thrown up at us over the past 4 to 5 years. And some, Amazon, you might have seen them in the news this week, they might try and fix it by demanding, for those who work at a desk, a full 5-day return to office mandate. That will create presenteeism, one word we really thought we'd try to leave behind through all the past few years and troubles, and actually focus on performance and output. But will a 5-day return to office actually create diverse, well-connected, high-performing teams? I think no. I think it's lazy. And I probably have a bit more to say on that down the line. So I'm looking forward to hearing the varying opinions and angles that our panel take on this topic. And I hope it inspires and sparks some ideas in you too. And we're going to bring all the panelists back together, like always, at the Power Hour for a quick chat at the end. So without further ado, please welcome Melody Moore, ED&I consultant, H&H. Melody is a seasoned ED&I advocate and will be exploring the symbiotic relationship between communication and inclusion, showcasing how IC is the unsung hero in the ED&I narrative, empowering every voice and sparking a culture of belonging. So please welcome Melody. Hello.
Hello. Sorry, I'm hoping you can see my slides. Has the technology worked?
I believe hopefully we'll be seeing your slides shortly, and I can let you know when they come up on the screen.
Someone can give us a thumbs up and let us know that they're there. Oh yes, there they are. Just
fantastic.
Arrived. I can see them, so I'm assuming everybody else. I share your butterflies. For same as you, I've been consulting for over 20 years and still share your butterflies and excitement of presenting to an invisible audience, shall we say. So I'm going to kick off, introduce myself, and then talk about, share what I'm going to talk about. So you happy for me to go ahead? It. Brilliant.
After
Thanks,
you.
Matt. So my name's Melody Moore. I don't really know why you have a picture of me there. I've just realised you can also see me. But I have been a consultant for over 20 years. I specialise in diversity and inclusion in leadership development and coaching. And I've worked with global organisations, UK-based organisations, for all of that 20 plus years. Earlier this year, I did a bucket list thing. I published my first book. It's called The Inclusive Team. And it really helps individuals and organizations build inclusive and high performing teams. That's really important to me, that it's not just about inclusion, it's also about performance. I'm also the host of a podcast, again, another bucket list thing. My podcast is called The Secret Resume, and next week, it's National Inclusion Week here in the UK next week. And I'm going to be launching the 5th series of that. And in that series, it will feature all of my guests that I interview will be leaders in the diversity and inclusion field. So do go and check it out. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic series. I've been recording it recently and really love it. Today, I'm going to talk about the importance of communication in creating inclusive organizations. I'm going to talk about how a strong partnership between the diversity, equity and inclusion team and the internal communications team can really raise the bar and have a really strong impact in terms of creating inclusion and belonging. And I come at this not as an internal comms expert, even though I work with H&H who are internal comms experts. I'm not the expert, but what I am an expert in is diversity and inclusion. And I can really see with all of the different clients that I work with, when internal comms and diversity and inclusion really work together, the power and the impact that they can have. And I just really want to explore that with you today. So let me introduce it. Let me just give you a bit of, I guess, the why first, and then maybe we'll go into the how. So the why is it important to think more strategically? That's really what I'm trying to get to here is diversity and inclusion professionals, those who are really passionate about it, really need to think more strategically, more systemically about how they create more inclusive organizations. One of the mistakes that I consistently see is that people take a really tactical, events-based approach to D&I. And what they're not doing is this thinking of the system or the broader levers that they really need to pull. You know, we're hearing a lot of criticism about diversity and inclusion at the moment, and the word performative comes up quite a lot. And really what we're trying to achieve is actually culture change. We're trying to change mindsets. We're trying to change really long established behaviors. We're trying to influence people. And I'm going to share with you a model which really can help you think about how you do that. And then we can think about, well, where does internal communications come into that? So I'm going to introduce you to the ABCD of aligned DEI. It's not a very snappy title, is it? But I should call it the alphabet model or something. But this is just a really simple way of thinking about what are the things that I need to think about if I'm really going to build a diverse, equitable, and inclusive organization. So what does ABCD mean? So A stands for ambition. And this is about clearly articulating the DEI strategy for the organization. It's about ensuring that the strategy is aligned to the organization's strategy, and that the key stakeholders in the top team are also aligned with the ambition of the organization. B stands for behavior. And this is about clearly identifying, articulating the inclusive behaviors that are going to make sure that you get as diverse an organization as possible and as an inclusive culture as possible. What I would say is that most organizations that I have worked with and that I have come across spend quite a lot of time on A and B. There's a lot of time talking about the business case and targets and KPIs. It's quite a lot of focus on behaviors, on education. What I see less of is the C and the D. And I believe that actually the C and the D are really what's going to make a difference. So C stands for context. Now, what I often see is a lift and shift. Someone's been successful in one organization, or they've heard of a good D&I thing in one organization. They try and put it into their own organization, and it doesn't work so well. And that's because people are not really getting a really good grasp on the context. And that is both the internal context. So, for instance, what is the culture like? What competing initiatives might be going on? You know, what do I have the engagement of the top team or not? And then the external context as well. So that might be sector challenges, it might be what's going on in the world, but really understanding your specific context is absolutely imperative when you are trying to change culture. And the third one is design. I was one of the people I was interviewing for my podcast next week. This week was said, this is the boring bit. This is about the systems and processes. It's about the things, the levers that you can pull, as I said, the things that underpin and reinforce the culture change. So this might be your recruitment process, it might be your performance management process, it could be all sorts of things. It's often HR systems and processes that we're looking at, but it's the small things that are going to trip you up if you don't get them right. So how do we then involve internal communications? What role does internal communications play in this culture change? Well, the internal comms people that I know are not just really great at communications. They also tend to have an understanding of behavior change. They have an understanding of psychology. And what I see is they often are used in a very tactical way. And I say the word use, you know, deliberately really used in a tactical way to promote, or, you know, maybe promote International Women's Day or Black History Month or National Inclusion Week. They are, you know, it's a sort of more tactical engagement with internal comms. And what I'm suggesting is there is a collective intelligence if you get together DEI and internal comms that really can help you make a step change, have a really strong, much stronger, greater impact, and much more likely to you know, manage the change, create a new culture. So I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions. This is not everything. This is just some ideas, one from each of the 4 segments of the model, as to how you can partner with it. This really is about partnership, not just engaging in a tactical way. How can you be more strategic when working with internal comms? So let's start with ambition. Now, there's 2 elements to this, really. Part of developing your ambition is to get out there and talk to people. So internal comms can be an important part of helping you understand what's going on in the business. You know, there's a listening element to developing your ambition. But there's also something really important about developing a really compelling narrative and working with your comms team right from the start to actually have a comms plan, a comms strategy for your D&I strategy, so that you are making sure that the messages that are coming out inside your organization and outside your organization too are actually all aligned. And so there's always a danger of a lot of noise. And this is about how do you cut through the noise and make sure you've got crystal clear messaging that's really going to help get those sort of hearts and minds of individuals. B, behavior. Now, this is often where internal comms do get involved. It might be marketing specific initiatives, but I want to give you a specific example. DEI can be a very sensitive subject. You can get a lot of resistance. We're seeing that all over in the press at the moment, but internal organizations. And things like development programs for underrepresented talent, I have seen have quite a strong resistance, both from people who are in your target group. So let's say you're targeting women, people within a target group who don't want to be singled out. And so they have resistance, or maybe a reluctance because they don't want to take the risk. They don't feel that they are ready to go on a high potential development program. So you get some resistance and challenge from people within your target group. You also can get resistance from people who are not in the target group. They don't want other people to be placed on special focus. They don't want some people to be seen to have advantages. So working really closely with your internal comms team can really help you craft the messages, both to attract people to the program, but also to provide the support that they will need outside of the organization, outside of the program. So people across the organization really understand why you're doing this and what advantages it will bring. C is for context. Internal comms tend to work across the organization. They can be your eyes and ears. They're involved in a broad range of things. They can really help you understand what else is going on, what is going to complement what you're trying to achieve, what maybe is in competition with what you're trying to achieve. So really help you key into that internal and external context to make sure that what you're doing happens at the right time, and that you don't do things that are just going to bounce back on you or not work as effectively. So using and working really closely with internal comms to help you understand the context of the organization. And then the final bit here is design. And again, this is about this changing systems and processes. Partly it's about listening. It's about involving the right people, maybe some people from underrepresented groups, in understanding what works and what doesn't work in your systems and processes. Internal comms can help you with that, but also can help you articulate, again, a good narrative, great narrative about why it's important to change. Why is it important to change your recruitment processes, for instance? So having really strong understanding, and again, involving them early on, so that you're not made all of your changes and you're coming to them last minute, but involve them right at the beginning so that they really understand what you're trying to achieve. It can be really involved. I'm going to add just a fifth one here. I said 4, I'm lying. This is about comms governance, and it kind of fits in design. It also fits in with ambition. And I just want to make a special mention to employee networks, because the real advantage of having employee resource groups or employee networks is that you have a really great group of passionate people who really care about the organization and making a difference. And the disadvantage is you have a group of really passionate people who really care about making a difference. And sometimes that means that a lot of noise and a lot of communication happens around D&I. And where I've seen internal comms colleagues work really effectively is to work with those employee networks to make sure that their communication is aligned to the ambition and the overall communication plan. So I'm just going to finish, I know we're tight for time, with some top tips. So I've got some top tips for people who are working with internal comms. And I would say of these tips, number 1 is the most important. Involve early. Get them in as a strategic partner, as part of your D&I team. And then for internal comms professionals, I know there are likely to be internal comms professionals on listening to this webinar. Some advice I would give as a D&I professional is probably, I would say, number 2 here, so doing the work on yourself. So really understanding your own biases, educate yourself about diversity and inclusion is super important. And number 5 as well, so thinking of yourselves as an internal comms team, role modeling diversity, equity, inclusion in your own department. So using inclusive design principles, involving a broad range of people, not the usual suspects, when you are thinking about creating a comm strategy or program. I'm going to finish there. I'm really looking forward to the Q&A later on, and I'm going to invite Matt back.
Thank you so much, Melody. And perfect timing. Love the top tips at the end. And we'll talk a lot of questions that we'll bring back at the conversation at the end. But it felt like a very powerful model that actually gets you to start working the way you should be working. So listening, involving, giving people a voice, understanding your own biases, weaknesses, to better educated, then to get the better impact for the project that you might be running. So it felt like a self-fulfilling prophecy by working through the steps in some respects. So thank you so much for that. And we will speak to you shortly. So it's the power hour. So, we're trying to get a lot of insight and viewpoints into this 60 minutes. So straight on to our next panelist, who was on Capitol Hill, I believe, this week, and kind of almost previewing what we do at the People First Summit. We've gone from England, we're traveling across the Atlantic, 3,000 miles to Washington, D.C., before going another 2,000 miles for our last panelist. So let's welcome Dawn Christian, CEO and founder of BeLeadership. I Belong by Dawn Christian. In this session, Dawn will explore the transformative journey from traditional teams to dynamic collaborators, all within the framework of building inclusive communities. Drawing on the Ethos-Driven Leadership Framework, this talk delves into how leaders can foster a culture of collaboration where belonging and well-being are central to organizational effectiveness. Please welcome Dawn. Hello.
Hi there. Hi, Matt. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you. And so much so, I want people to be listening to you and not me. So I will see you in about 15 minutes.
All right. Well, welcome. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and present the slide. Oh, there they are. And you know what? I think we open this up perfectly with Melody's talk around communication, because we're going to go even further into what that means for us as humans. I'm Dawn Christian. I am a wife, a mom, a human who thrives with anxiety. I'm a leadership advisor and belonging thought leader, and that's what brings me here today. But I'm also a mental wellness in the workplace practitioner and advocate. My job, I claim and create spaces to belong. So today we're going to talk about those intersections: leadership, humanness, belonging, and this thing called ethos, and how all of those things connected help you go from having teams to collaborators. We'll even talk about the difference between the two. So I'm going to open up with our mission, because I think it's important to have a mission, to know where you're headed, to have a North Star. And then we'll talk about ethos-driven leadership and how that guides us to going from having teams to collaborators. Our mission statement here at BeLeadership is to intentionally center the layered identity of leaders and set the stage to embrace authenticity at the intersection of belonging and impact. Ethos-driven leadership guides you to prioritize self-care, you first, and well-being as you lead in your community and organization. We help you go from having teams to collaborators. And we do that first by understanding you. Who are you? Before we delve into things, I want to kind of go where we've been a little bit already, which is our landscape. When we think about what we're talking about when we say belonging, number one, it is not the same for everyone. What I need and what the other two humans who live in this home and other being, my little furry friend, need are completely different. And so when I say that I claim and create spaces for belonging, there's a shared accountability in what that means. That shared accountability is me showing up so I can claim what it is that I need and demonstrate who I am so folks know how to create space for me. But it is a shared accountability and exchange of being part of this thing we call society, part of community, where I also make space for others in an exchange of ideas, perspectives. This is not about us all having the same. It is about us reveling in our differences. The landscape today is such that loneliness is an epidemic. When belonging is missing, there's attrition, disengagement, burnout, workplace toxicity, and trauma. There are lack of perspectives and a passing culture. What do I mean by passing culture? I mean that you're so busy trying to pass, to fit in, to be like everyone else. So we're spending more time and energy trying to become something rather than being who we already are. What's to gain from belonging? Retention, engagement, psychological safety, authenticity, the presence of an entrepreneurial spirit. That's where we're going to identify the team versus collaborator ideology, and ownership and productivity. The impact on a belonging culture is a human impact, connectedness, humanity, well-being, mindset, and a growth mindset. The business impact, shared goal attainment, renewable productivity and growth, and better outcomes on both ends. So let's get into what we're here to talk about today. Why belonging in leadership? Where did this all come from? I'm not going to make you read this. I'll highlight it for you. But belonging is a foundation of culture that is informed by inclusion, diversity, equity, and accountability. It also has an impact on society. It's the bedrock that fosters a culture of inclusion. Building cultural competency and prioritizing wellness are critical elements of belonging. And where we come in at leadership is that it is not performative, but rather centered in your ethos, where your values and your character come together and show up. What actually matters to you? Leaders can build cultural competence and develop cultures of belonging by articulating those values, being transparent about them, and being vulnerable, fostering that psychological safety, and honoring lived experiences. We seek to understand and respect diverse perspectives, and together we reimagine leadership to include what we say is a leadership competency, and that is belonging. So what is this ethos-driven leadership thing she's talking about? It's four-pronged, and it's rooted in four questions, which we'll go deeper in. But ethos-driven leadership says, know who you are. It prioritizes your core values so that you can have alignment with who you are and what motivates you, so that when you are a leader, we are less worried about cancel culture and more worried about fostering belonging culture. Because when you show up as you are and are consistent with that, you have less to worry about, because you know who you are, you're in alignment, and you're assessing that with where you choose to lead. Newsflash, there is a choice to where we show up. And this work with ethos-driven leadership helps us to do that work, that self-assessment, check in with ourselves to make that alignment clear. There is a shared accountability. Where am I claiming? What am I creating? Why does it matter? And who do you trust? Do you trust someone that shows you exactly who they are, or someone whom you have to guess? These four quadrants, purpose, needs, beliefs, and influence, are the quadrants in which you go deeper to understand who you are, and then articulate those in your leadership identity. Purpose, what matters to you? Needs, What motivates you? Beliefs. What are your rooted beliefs? Where do they come from? And here's the thing with beliefs. Some of those things we have no business believing. So how and where do we get the idea that leadership only looks one way? Who inspired that? And how do we unpack that to understand what our relationship is with it today? Because when we understand what we believe, then we can understand why we believe it and then shift if we need to. Influence. What and maybe whom holds you accountable? When we know what holds us accountable and we articulate that, not only are we in alignment with where we are leading, but we are able to pull people along in with us by leaning into that influence and saying, is there something that you can help hold me accountable for? The 4 tips for today's talk is to answer these questions, to define what your ethos-driven leadership mission statement may be. Know yourself, be yourself. Know yourself and be yourself. This is a departure from what we've heard, which is to present leadership, executive presence. We don't want to work with presence. We want to work with people. We want to understand who you are and pull you in. Let me show you how this all comes together in real life. What's a team and what's a collaborator? A team is a group of people. You can be put on any team. We were all kids. We all got picked for the dodgeball team or the soccer team or the football team. And that's just a matter of somebody pointing and saying, you're with me. And then hopefully we win this game. But when we look at collaboration, we are doing something deeper. Collaboration is a partnership, a union, which means that I'm in it with you. It's the act of producing and making something together. I don't just have my position on the team. I know how my position connects with that shared goal. To collaborate is to commit to the possibility of producing outcomes greater than it would be if it was developed in a silo. There are 3 prongs to how to do this. Trust and connection. Those teams that have trust and connection are 2.5 times more likely to be high-performing revenue organizations. When it comes to innovation, where there is psychological safety and a sense of showing up, a sense of belonging, a sense of connection, there's 1.7 times more of a likely chance of innovation and having leaders not wanting to pass, but to bring their ideas because they are not worried about your judgment. They are concerned and they are reveling in the idea of bringing their humanness, their lived experiences, their ideas to the forefront. Also, when it comes to innovation, it does affect the bottom line. Research can show that 19% more revenue centered in innovation can be cultivated when there is a belonging culture. Psychological safety, well, on the bottom line, when we're looking at a world that feels disconnected, where we can't show up and I may feel like I need to be more like you than like myself, that has an impact. But when we center psychological safety and prioritize trust and showing up as we are and bringing our full selves, there's a 74% less likely instance of burnout. And teams are 76% more engaged when there is psychological safety. You do this first by showing up as you are. Answering the questions that are rooted in the Ethos-Driven Leadership Framework. Then you articulate them and move your identity along with exactly who they hired to be in the role, which is you, encouraging others to do the same. And this is what we leverage to move from having teams to collaborators. I'd love to share more about what I do and how I do it working with teams, but I want to give us enough time for questions and things at the end. But essentially, when we are thinking about teams and collaboration, we are thinking first about showing up as we are, answering the core questions that center your purpose, your needs, your beliefs, and your influence. And that is ethos-driven leadership and how we move from being individuals on teams to co-collaborators. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dawn. I've had a couple of brief chats in the past, and my head was full of ideas at the end of them. Similarly, again today, I've got so many questions around team and collaborators right now. So I'm hoping we get to them at the end. A lot of questions, actually. So thank you so much for sparking off a lot of different thoughts in my head, and hopefully that of the audience too. We will speak to you again shortly. Thank you so much, Dawn. And now to our, what have I done with, excuse me, I just remembered my final notes. Summer's still going on in my head, apparently. To our last panelist, Harvey Deutschendorf, CEO of Harmony House Press. Emotions drive people, people drive productivity. In this session, Harvey explores discretionary effort. That effort comes about when employees feel they're safe, they belong, they're heard, recognized, and appreciated. So really nice segue from what Dawn's been talking about. This presentation gives insights into tried and true ways that work for making your organization's staff give all of themselves in their efforts. So moving, I think, about another 2,000 miles west to Edmonton in Canada and a bit north. Please welcome Harvey Deutschendorf.
Thank you, Matt.
Hi, Harvey. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fine today. Excited to be on.
Thank you so much for being with us. And I'm going to exit stage left so we can hear what you've got to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, my area of specialty and expertise is emotional intelligence. I've worked in this field for over 25 years. I'm one of the early adopters of emotional intelligence. I'm a speaker, an author, and a writer, and I've published a couple of books. The first book that I published back in 2009 is The Other Kind of Smart, Simple Ways to Boost Your Emotional Intelligence for Greater Personal Effectiveness and Success. And that was published internationally published. It was published in China and Vietnam. Also translated into Arabic in Saudi Arabia. And my latest book, Emotional Intelligence Game Changers, was published in 2003, 101 Simple Ways to Win at Work and Life. And I also write for Fast Company. If those of you that don't know who Fast Company is, it's somewhat similar to Forbes, which is a business publication. Fast Company is more, I would say, younger audience would read Fast Company. If you go to Silicon Valley and you would mention Fast Company, probably most of the employees there would know who Fast Company was. But I've written now 151 articles, and I write in the work-life section. My specialty is emotional intelligence, but I write about all the human aspects when it comes to work and life. And you can see my articles going to the website. It's The Other Kind of Smart, the same as the title of my first book, .com, theotherkindsmart.com. Scroll down the main page, and the Harvey on Fast Company. The articles, when you click on that, the last articles will pop up, and then you can continue on. As Matt mentioned, today I'm going to talk about something called discretionary effort. Aubrey Daniels he's a psychologist, and he spent his basically his life, researching something called discretionary effort. Discretionary effort is the amount of effort we could give at work if we wanted to. Now, he pegged that at about 80%. We can never give 100%, but 80% is the effort we would be able to give. And that is about 50% more what he pegged the effort that we need to put forth just to keep from getting fired. So, we can get by on maybe 25%. That's basically what we have to just do. Now, there's a phrase in just after COVID that came out, a number of phrases that was happening in the workplace, and one of them was called quiet quitting. There was mass people were departing from their workplaces, quitting. And then there was another thing was happening, was called quiet quitting. It was people didn't leave their workplace, but they basically give the minimum, which is maybe 25%. Or, of course, their employers were not happy with them, but they didn't reach that point where they would get fired. Now, imagine the difference between that. Aubrey Daniels determined what could be about 50%. Imagine if you could get in the workplace 50% more from your employees. Imagine what that would do to productivity, to the success of any organization. But here's the thing. We have to earn. Employers have to earn discretionary effort. So how do they encourage discretionary effort? Steve Jobs said, we don't hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. What he was alluding to is that we're not, in most workplaces, we are not tapping our major resource that we have is our people. And we need to encourage people to come up with ideas, to share ideas, to become creative. It's a major resource that's being really untapped that we're not using. And we need to recognize when people come up with ideas. We may not be able to use them. We may not be able to use a lot of them, but we have to recognize them. That's hugely important. Now, at one time back in the early 1900s, there was a very negative attitude towards workers by organizations, companies. Felt that workers would have to be carefully monitored. They'd have to be watched, because if they weren't, they would do as little possible. They would slack off. They would get away with things. And a man by the name of Andrew Carnegie, Andrew Carnegie started up basically the steel manufacturing business in the US. He was a Scottish American and became very wealthy at one time, was one of the wealthiest men in the States, the United States. And he also was a well-known philanthropist. At the end of his life, he gave away 90%, last 18 years, 90% of his fortune. But he came up with a very, very radical idea, which was at the time, he told all his managers, catch people doing something right. That was a radical idea. That was a departure from what was really sort of considered, we have to watch people, we have to monitor them. He said, no, we have to trust people that they're wanting to give their best, and we have to positively reinforce that behavior. Okay, we have to find them doing something right, and we have to reinforce it. We have to recognize it, and we have to appreciate it. William James, psychologist, well-known psychologist in about the middle of the 1800s. He basically was one of the fathers of psychology. He founded the psychology department at Harvard University. He said, as humans, one of the things that we really desire, one of our strongest cravings, is to be appreciated. So that's one of the greatest motivations. If we can appreciate people, their motivation level goes up, their desire to do more will go up, and we'll get much more. They'll give more of their best effort. The other thing we need to do as employers is check in with people a lot. We need to find out what we're doing. I don't mean micromanage. No, don't. It's not micromanagement. But we have to be aware of what they're doing. We have to show an interest in what they're doing. We have to ask about how they've accomplished something. And we have to engage them. The more engaged people will be, the more they'll feel like they're part of what they're doing, part of the whole organization. They want to be more part of the success of the organization because they'll identify more with the organization. We have to constantly ask for input when there's a problem, especially around that involves people's workplaces. What we have to do is ask them for ideas and get them involved in the solution. Once people are involved in their solution, they're going to work much more when they have some input into what they're doing, when they're involved themselves in the solution, rather than when they are told, they are given direction and told what they need to do. The more involved they are, the more they will be willing to give. Okay? The thing is, we have to offer much more support to people. Excuse me. Managers, supervisors need to see themselves as a resource for their people. They have to, we're talking about, actually, the term is servant leadership. See themselves, their role as being there for their people, supporting their people. When people that work for you see you as somebody that wants them to succeed, that is willing to go and find resources and help them, that's very involved with them, they will be very, very motivated to succeed. Again, they'll feel like they're more part of the organization. They have a vested interest in the organization. Now, when it comes to appreciation, a lot of organizations don't do appreciation very well. It's typical organizations I've worked for. It's okay. This time of year, again, once a year, we're going to have to hold a staff appreciation. Where it's sort of we get together and we play a few games. Where we give people certificates. We do things like that and say, well, you're all doing a fine job. Appreciation, one size does not fit all when it comes to appreciating people, because people are all different and they want to be appreciated in their own way, not a blanket appreciation. Actually, that actually works to people's disadvantage. Actually, it can be a disincentive to do just a blanket appreciation, because imagine the people that are working very hard. They have achieved quite a bit. They put in extra time and effort, and they're given the same blanket appreciation. You're all doing a great job, as somebody who is at sort of the baseline of that discretionary effort scale. Somebody who's doing just the minimum, just putting in time. Just putting in the minimum effort so they don't get themselves hurt. Imagining how they would feel, somebody who's giving a lot, if that isn't recognized. So recognition has to be given. It's not one size fits all. We have to get to know our people. We have to take the time to know how they'd be appreciated. Some people like to be appreciated, acknowledged publicly. Other people like to be privately acknowledged. They don't like that public acknowledgement, being called out in front of everybody. The other thing is, when it comes to appreciation, make it specific: results achieved and behavior witnessed. It's not just, oh, you're doing a great job. What am I doing that's so great? When did you witness it? Okay, so make it specific to the person. The other thing you have to be careful about is make it timely, make it frequent. It's not like, hey, you know, you did a great job on that project 6 months ago, way down the road. No, it has to be the time that this was actually done to have any really type of effect. Encourage staff, encourage appreciation from all areas. So your customers, ask them, you know, for that sort of thing. What we're trying to avoid is favoritism. Favoritism and appreciation is, you know, does management, do leaders appreciate only people that, well, use the word, that's commonly used, that make them look good, that stroke their egos, rather than people that are actually doing good work and are actually getting the results. We have to avoid that, because that will very, very much turn off the people that are actually doing good work. That will act as a really major disincentive. And just the last word on, I was going to show you something when it comes to appreciation. It doesn't have to cost very much, and we don't get appreciation, actually feel appreciated through what we're being paid. Actually, our pay actually can, the moment we're being paid, can be a disincentive if we feel we're not being paid fairly, or we're not being paid equivalent to what other organizations are paying people to do similar work. We have an example here in Canada. Our biggest airline, Air Canada, their pilots were close to going on strike here because they were making quite a bit less than their American counterparts, than the American pilots, and that was a major disincentive for them. But here I speak quite a lot, especially in North America. And a few years ago, a number of years ago, I was speaking in Jacksonville, Florida, in the U.S. I came to the airport. I didn't know anybody there, and my host was meeting me there. This is what my host. I looked around when I picked up my bags, and this is what my host. I'm known as the EI guy. Had a sign that said this. I've kept this sign, and it just warmed. I can't describe how good that felt, coming in and having her welcome me like that. And I've probably gave the best talk that I ever did, because I was so motivated. I was so pumped to give my best. So my discretionary effort was way up there. Now, this didn't cost very much, but it showed that somebody took the time and effort, somebody who was highly emotionally intelligent, to know how to welcome me there. How, you know, and it was Valentine's Day. That's why you see the hearts. It was Valentine's Day. She took that into account and knew I was coming to a new place. I didn't know anybody. And how do you make somebody feel comfortable? How do you make them feel appreciated? She just absolutely nailed it. So with that, I guess we're running out of time, and you've taken too much time. So I'll invite you back in, Matt. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Harvey. I've always said that my belief is what we're trying to do here does boil down to basic fundamental human principles, and the fact you reference Carnegie and William James and catch people doing something right. The greatest motivation is to be appreciated. I think that just reinforces that we are humans, and some things do not change. And it's a really nice way of following on from Dawn, because I'm still having the team and collaborators knocking around my head. And one of the greatest strengths we have is the diversity of our teams or collaborators. And HP's had a phrase, growth through diversity. And the idea is that different backgrounds, education, families can bring to an organization. And then if you're creating those places that Dawn's talking about, safe, where you belong, and those ideas are being heard, then you might not do a Kodak and ignore the digital camera, or you might not, might be a 3M and actually listen to the Post-it note idea, or the Happy Meal idea at McDonald's, all employee ideas that have created billions for the organization. So EI, obviously the EI guy, I think we could probably spend hours on that on its own, but I really thank you for lending your views and your take on this topic from the EI angle. So on that one, I'd like to bring everybody in as well. So Melody and Dawn, thank you so much. Even though it's an hour, it seems a long time ago since we heard from you, Melody, and then Dawn. So it's good to have you back. Time is running short. We actually used to try to have 4 people speak at the first power hour, so I don't know how we did that. So much to take away from all of this, and I think it would be good to maybe interrogate it a bit more via our own conversations individually as well. So I might come back to you and ask if you're up for doing that, and then we can record the conversation around it. But I'd like to as time is short, I'd like to just ask if you're prepared to. Obviously, they're the biggest company in the world, and you might want to work with them. But I just want to know what your take is on the Amazon return to office mandate, from looking at it from an inclusion, community, connection, belonging aspect. Like, is this just the worst idea in the world, a good idea, none of the above? Anybody that wants to answer first, go for it.
Yeah, I'm happy to, and this is agnostic of it being Amazon or any other company. And the answer that I'm going to provide is probably one that is going to leave folks a little unsettled, which is, well, it depends, right? Because as I opened up my statements, I started out with the comment that belonging is not the same for everyone. So for this period of time where we have gone from in office to at home for some, that created a relief, if I can be even more bold, as a Black female in the United States at the intersection of the murder of George Floyd and COVID, it felt safer to be home.
Yeah.
I intentionally did not change my backdrop so you could see exactly who I was. And I look around me in this office at other things that surround me with me. And I would venture to say that's probably when I did my best work, because I didn't have to change who I was. I also made some hard decisions about where I wanted to be and where I wanted to lead and show up, because, again, true to the Ethos-Driven Leadership Framework, I needed to understand what my values and what mattered to me and what my purpose was, and put those in alignment with where I work. And so this may make some folks slightly uncomfortable, and that is actually a gift. Right? That if return to work does not work for you because you need now this new life where we are hybrid or working virtual because that's something that is important to you, then you need to make the decision whether Amazon is your place. I am not going to sit here and try to discern whether it's the right or wrong decision for Amazon. That is not where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
But when organizations change and you and your ethos don't go with that change, then that shared accountability is for us to do the assessment. Is this for me? Now, will this alienate some folks that want a hybrid or felt more comfortable being at home for whatever the reasons might be? That's the risk that Amazon took.
Well,
right?
So I think that's where I was going to jump in and say that is what people are scared about, whether they, like you say, agnostic of Amazon. Actually, are you just creating a workplace of people that look like me? No kids, right. White male, no responsibilities outside of my dog. So because they are totally ignoring other areas of society, huge majority of it. So actually, this act is very dangerous in some respects to what you're designing and wanting in the workforce. So Melody, Harvey, just any input? Thank you so much, Dawn.
The thing that stands out for me, and again, it's regardless of whether it's Amazon or anyone else who's doing this, is if you want to get the best out of people, you need to give them, choice and autonomy. So, research around work from home, work in the office, wherever, where you get the best from people is where they have a choice. And them taking away the choice, absolutely, people will self-select out, and it will be people like Dawn and I who self-select out, maybe. And that is the risk, and maybe they're happy to take that risk. I've read, it's a good way of getting rid of some people without having to pay them off. So, there's, that's not, again, it's not just Amazon, it's whoever does this. There's thinking behind this, but there are implications, and I think we are yet to see what the implications are, because I think the world has changed, and I don't think organizations have kept up with that change. People's expectations have changed.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Harvey, would you like to add anything before we
I like what I just sort of agree with what my colleagues there have said, but it's one size does not fit all, and working just going back to the workplace doesn't suit everyone. There are certain people that really are missing going to work. They're the high extroverts that need that constant stimulation, that need, of the workplace, and that works for them, and they're probably happy to go back. There's other people that just are absolutely do not want to go back to work. They want to work remotely. The other option is, they did a survey at one time. They said the majority of people would support some time at work and some time working remotely. That's kind of an option going into work. Now, I guess the idea is you don't know what motivates companies like Amazon to want to bring everybody back to work. Is it, and we're going to suspect that it could be the idea that they suspect that people that are working remotely aren't really doing much work, which is not is a problem of again, recognizing, appreciating people, and understanding what motivates people. It's not it's the old idea going right back to what people believe, that if we don't monitor people, they will not perform. They will do the sort of the minimum and there's people will, whatever they say is the reasoning behind that. There are people that will believe that's the reason that it's being done, so it's not a good move. The ideal would be to give people the option.
I think that's it as well, because they were at 3 days, and so the balance was there. Balance is a great word for everything in life. And they said that they work better in person. Well, you're already working together in person 3 days a week, so maybe be looking at how you're working together in person, because obviously you're not doing that at optimum performance. So anyway, I'm so grateful. We do need to wrap this up, because one of our team needs to, talking about different backgrounds, one of our team needs to go, and they are running the tech. Otherwise somebody's going to be standing outside a school gate. So on that note, I'm just so grateful for all of your opinions and input into this, and this is how we do move things forward, having conversations and bringing different ideas to the table. So Melody, Dawn, Harvey, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody watching, and we're very grateful, and this will be on demand if you're not watching on demand right now, and we'll bring all three of these speakers to you in different ways later in the year. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. I very much enjoyed it. It was nice meeting everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye now.